Hear that? That's the sound of you creating your own destiny. While others are waiting in line for brunch, you're spending Saturday in the garage. Because you went to advanceautoparts.com, ordered a platinum battery with a 3-year replacement warranty, and picked it up in-store just 30 minutes later. Now, installing a battery isn't an all-day job, but what the brunch crowd doesn't know won't hurt it. Advance Auto Parts. Let's get you back on the road. Visit advanceautoparts.com to learn more.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you in part by Great Clips. At Great Clips, they want you to love your haircut. That's why they created Clip Notes. Notes that tell them what you like, so you get your same great haircut every time, anywhere. With Clip Notes, no matter which stylist cuts your hair, you'll get the haircut you want. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
The following program is a podcast1.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting here in my office at 316 Gimmick Street. For the last week, I've been filming Broken Skull Challenge out there in Agua Dulce, California. If any of you guys listen to the podcast or watch my Twitter account, you notice that I had a lot of water underneath my left elbow. It was an olecranon bursitis. The severity of the elbow has gone down. There's still some fluid in my elbow, and there will be for quite some time. I think as it made the news rounds, which was not my intention, it was just to give you guys a visual for the podcast. But some people assume that that was a long-term injury, that my elbow would always be like that. No, the elbow's doing fine. There's a lot of bruising around that area where the liquid has tried to displace itself into my body, but it's not a long-term injury. I'll be just fine. Just a little water on the elbow, and that's the way it goes. My voice is about to go out, though. I think my vocal cords are very strained from the intense yelling and stuff, all the activities at the show we've been doing. So I'm going to keep today's open very short because I just conducted an interview with Wade Keller from Pro Wrestling Torch. We broke down the awesome pay-per-view NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn. Wade had recommended I watch the show. This is the show where I saw the Revival, Dash and Dawson work with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. I pronounced his name right. And that was a hellacious match. We're going to break down that match. We're going to break down the entire card. Better late than never. The show was so good, it needed to be talked about. And some of you guys are behind schedule, just like I am. So we'll offer our opinions, insight into all the matches. And I think this was an outstanding show. Love the production values of it. Love the way this sets it apart from the main roster stage. And this is an environment to me that feels more like pro wrestling. I love the commentary team. We'll talk about all this, myself and Wade Keller. But before we get into the body of the podcast, I want to show a little appreciation for all you folks for supporting the fine sponsor of the Steve Austin Show. And one of those fine sponsors has agreed to help me do just that. Dollar Shave Club has arranged for all new members to get a month of the Executive Razor for free when you buy a tube of Dr. Carver's shave butter. So now there's no excuse not to join the millions of others who've already joined the club. DollarShaveClub.com/Steve delivers amazing razors right to your front door for about a third of the price of what those greedy razor corporations charge. That means when you become a member of DollarShaveClub.com/Steve, you can afford a great shave with a fresh blade anytime you want. And we all know how great it feels to shave with a fresh blade. I've got the executive blade, and when you pair it with Dr. Carver's shave butter, it's about the smoothest shave money can buy, and that's without breaking your bank. And Dr. Carver's shave butter ain't your average shave cream. It's a unique formula made with natural ingredients that will leave your skin feeling soft and smooth. So join DollarShaveClub.com/Steve now, and new members who buy a tube of Dr. Carver's shave butter get a month of the Executive Razor for free. Take advantage of this special offer today. Go to DollarShaveClub.com/Steve. That's DollarShaveClub.com/Steve. All right, here we go with Wade Keller. I want to apologize for my voice before we get started. I've been out filming the Broken Skull Challenge, and after yelling at people for 5 days straight, my vocal cords are under a little bit of a strain, so please bear with me. I'm talking to Wade Keller on the other end of the line. Good afternoon, Wade. How are you?
Good to be here, Steve. Always fun to talk to you.
Good to be here, too. Man, I know you had a busy weekend. I appreciate you making time for me. A couple of weeks ago, you recommended, when we were talking about SummerSlam, to go watch NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn. I watched that event, and I absolutely loved it. So I know you've been talking about this for a long time, but you haven't talked about it on this show. Every time we get together on my show, it's a home run out of the park. So let's see if we can hit a home run or, with my voice, hit a solid triple.
I'll go for that. Triples are always novel and fun anyway.
Hey, man, let's talk about NXT. Just the overall feel of the event there in the arena. Spectacular job of lighting. I love the way WWE goes about making NXT product feel completely different than the WWE, their main roster product. And the lighting was great. Loved the production values. And it started off with a package, some of the superstars talking about 1 year ago, what they were doing, where they were in their career. Many of them were there the year before, but many weren't. So I thought that was a really great way to start it off, and I love the lighting and production because it feels so much different than the WWE stuff on the main roster, and I love the lighting. They kind of darken that crowd a little bit. You can see the first few rows. You can see all the rows, basically. But it's a whole different setup. Your thoughts on the 1 year ago package and just the lighting in general, production value versus the main roster stuff?
I'm glad we didn't jump right to the matches because I remember watching this come on when they went live to Tom Phillips and Corey Graves, and they had the spotlights shining on the crowd, moving around the building, and a great entrance or a great intro song. And it struck me the way it struck you. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I mean, you described some of it, but it is hard to put it was hard for me to put my finger on why instantly I liked NXT TakeOver's atmosphere in the exact same building compared to what I saw the next night with SummerSlam and Raw. It's not just that it's different. It's not even that it's tangibly done in some sort of more professional way, but there is something about it that feels more cool and more original. There's something about the way that SummerSlam is filmed, which by any other standard of sports or other entertainment is phenomenal. I mean, WWE does a great job. This is not dissing on them.
No, not at all.
In the job that they do. But there is something fresh and contemporary and cool about NXT. And the second that they went to that wide shot of the arena with that cool music and the spotlight in the background, I got chills. I was like, this feels more special in a subtle and more sophisticated way than WWE is able to accomplish with a very good production for SummerSlam. So I'm totally with you on that. And what I like about NXT is it doesn't feel like a minor league version of somebody who's trying to emulate WWE on a smaller budget or the same people half-hearting it because it's a smaller audience. They actually have this. It gives off the vibe of somebody who is treating this like their firstborn. This is their brand. This is their show. The production team, the announcers, the wrestlers, it doesn't come across like a derivative of WWE. It's its own vision, and it's really, really done well.
Well, here's what I have in my notes. What I liked about this also, when we look at the whole atmosphere, the production value of the arena, the vibe, I also really enjoyed from top to bottom the commentary on this pay-per-view by Corey Graves, and I missed the other guy's name. What is his name?
Tom Phillips.
Those guys did a great job. And what I also liked about this event that played into the vibe, the feel, the look, was the fact that I thought the way these guys talked about some of the things, and I'll bring them up during the matches as they happened when we start breaking those down, this feels like a sporting event. This feels like pro wrestling back in the day that I grew up watching. And the fact that they treated it like a shoot, talking about things psychology-wise, what these guys were doing to each other, some of the lines that I'll bring up later on, man, to me, so fresh. You watch the product, day in, day out. I don't have time to plan on the SummerSlam commentary. To me, these two guys, premier teamwork, premier calling, and it added to it. It made it feel like a sporting event, not a circus sideshow, not sports entertainment. It felt like pro wrestling. I dug that.
I talk about this all the time on my PW Torch livecast that I do. The sports-like feel of NXT is something. I think that there are fans who grew up in the Attitude Era, post-Attitude Era, and the main exposure to pro wrestling has been WWE. If they get a glimpse of New Japan, they like the work rate, they like the cultural change, but there's something else about when you watch New Japan that I think grabs people, and that is it's treated and presented like a sport. And I know that there was this almost inferiority complex or overcompensating that took place in the internet boom period where, because, Steve, I want to do a sidebar. What percentage of wrestling fans thought there was nothing suspicious about the competition in the ring in the 1980s?
There was nothing suspicious about it at all.
The way that it was presented on air, it wasn't suspicious because the presentation was, this is real. But the announcers were not ashamed to present it as real. They weren't thinking, haha, this is entertainment, or we need entertainment to cover up for the fact that there's fake fighting going on. None of that was ingrained in the presentation. But in the 2000s, I think there really was this feeling of, well, now the internet has told all our secrets. There's all these books and newsletters, and especially the vast expansion of the internet. They felt ashamed to, when the lights came on, presented as real. They felt like they were insulting their audience. And I say this over and over again, the best gift you can give to an audience who knows wrestling isn't real, and they know way more than anybody knew 25 years ago about the way things worked, the best gift you can give to them is treating it as if it is real, because it becomes this more immersive, enjoyable experience. But like you say, it felt like a sporting event. It's one of those things. Even on this last Wednesday show, the first TV since takeover that they taped, they were talking about Ty Dillinger, and they were talking about how he had a bad 2016, and he's hoping to turn it around in 2017, or this fall. They talk about it like they own their losses. They talk about it like an NFL team that had a bad year or a bad first half of the year, and how they're needing to adjust. It's a small thing, but it makes everything easier that they do. It's a gift to the fans, and I don't even think fans realize, who have only seen wrestling 10, 15 years, how much more enjoyable it is when everybody in the game, everybody on the show, is acting as if they are still fiercely protecting kayfabe.
Absolutely, and that just added to it. One other note I have here on my show notes, man, it seems like back in the day, many towns were, but Chicago in particular was a stronghold for me. It really seems like that Brooklyn crowd has become a stronghold for NXT. Now, I know they did SummerSlam there, they did Raw there, but for some reason, that Brooklyn and NXT just works like peas and carrots. Those people enjoyed being there. They were so responsive to me. I mean, there were great matches from top to bottom, but it just seems like Brooklyn and New York being, their number one major market in the United States, and it's a match made in heaven, but it really seems like that NXT brand is really beloved there in Brooklyn for some reason. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. I mean, that part of it is people can drive from all over the Northeast to go to SummerSlam, and now they're turning it into a weekend. And the people who are willing to drive and make a weekend of it recognize something about NXT, the choice of free agents they sign. Robert Roode, Austin Aries, Shinsuke Nakamura, this current incarnation of the roster, they respect the decision makers. And there is a pride in a wrestling product where it feels like it's being presented by people who love pro wrestling and aren't ashamed of the term and aren't ashamed of trying to turn it into something else so that people on Wall Street or some Hollywood people don't think they take this fake stuff too seriously. The joy of NXT is that they seem to embrace their roots and what they are, and they're not scared to present it as real. I mean, Ring of Honor does a nice job with this too. I want to give props to Ring of Honor. For a dozen years now, they've taken that approach, but their budget is so small that and they just don't have the exposure and the benefits that NXT does. But that's one of the things I like about going to a live ROH show or watching their pay-per-views is, again, the announce team and the way the show's presented and the way the wrestlers talk about it. It's this immersive sporting event. And, yeah, it just works for me. Oh, as far as Brooklyn goes, yeah, so you got these hardcore fans in the Northeast going to Brooklyn and turning it into a weekend. But I think they feel empowered, Steve, to voice to management, this is the kind of wrestling that we like more. And I think we get some of that. We're going to find out if that extends beyond Brooklyn, because they're doing the same thing in Toronto in November for Survivor Series. They just announced yesterday or 2 days ago that NXT TakeOver will be in Toronto on the Saturday before Survivor Series, and then they're going to be in Air Canada Center huge building, 18,000 seater, 3 nights in a row again. So, Steve, we're going to see if it's just Brooklyn or if Toronto brings those ardent fans and those NXT fanatics who will be just as vocal into the product.
All right, well, that's great. Let's get into some of the matches. Here we go. No Way Jose versus Austin Aries. Now, break us down for me real quick, Wade, and then we'll get into the match. I've never heard of No Way Jose. Here's a guy with a good look, good size, very good mechanically in the ring. Before we get into the match, where did this guy come from?
He came from the North Carolina indie scene. He's been wrestling there for a while. Torch Senior, calling him as Bruce Mitchell, has seen him in person a lot at indie shows he attends. And he's saw him as a prospect. He's got good height. The thing that I noticed about him, and even on his match this Wednesday on NXT TV, there's a comfort level that he has, and a presence, and he's comfortable in his own skin. He won his match, and then he goes and interacts with the crowd, and there's no trepidation. There's no sense that he isn't sure of himself, and you can't buy that. You can't teach that necessarily. He has something innately. Obviously, he's got rhythm. He's got his gimmick. He's got a good look. You talk about the mechanics being good. I agree with that. The only thing that I'm worried about with him is that he gets pegged as a mid-card guy because the gimmick is so kind of catchy and fun. And I hope that he is able, we're kind of getting broader here with him, but I hope that he's able to go beyond. It's a fun opening match. It's a fun third from the top, or, mid-card match, third match on the show. I hope that they look and evaluate whether there's a greater upside, and he needs to show a little more seriousness in his ring style sooner than later, so he doesn't get pigeonholed as just kind of a Santino, Heath Slater, haha guy.
Yeah, but was he wrestling as No Way Jose prior to WWE?
He was. Yep.
Okay, well, here's the thing with that. What I thought about the kid, good look, good size, real good worker, good fire. Like you said, no trepidation. Of course, he's in there with Austin Aries, who's a veteran. Austin Aries is a damn good worker. He was a leader in this match. Great pacing. Austin Aries took his time with everything. He had a mean streak. On No Way Jose, now this could be his ringmaster. I mean, this is his foot in the door, so he doesn't have to always be No Way Jose because, quite frankly, and I'm not going to put any limits on this guy, but I don't know how far No Way Jose can go. But, I mean, he's there, he's in there. Keep thinking about it. Maybe something happens. There's a repackaging or there's a name change or there's something. But I think the kid has talent. He's good size. He's a damn good worker, so the sky's the limit for him. But anyway, in the match, in my notes here, I have a very good match. I love the quick submission. I guess Austin Aries had it a few times. He goes over with the sunset bomb into what's that, a last chancellery?
Yeah.
I couldn't understand the name of his finish. It was a quick submission, and then Austin reattacks Jose. Yeah. Hideo Itami comes out, hits a GTS on Aries. But anyway, I thought this was a great opening match. Great work by both guys. And I think there's a lot of upside with No Way Jose, and it was great to see Austin Aries on the card and getting a chance to show what he can do.
Yeah, and it is called the Last Chancery, so that's the gimmick name for it, yeah.
Thank you. The guy said at one time, okay, what was that?
Yeah. I thought the dynamic between these two was good. I mean, I think that Aries, obviously, he's such a pro.
Absolutely.
And, this match was here for Aries because I think they want to see him be a heavyweight title contender for Nakamura. And so No Way Jose, they want to get him on the TakeOver special. He's got a good fan following. There's enthusiasm for him with the crowd. It gets the energy's going to be high. But at the stage he's at, he is there to put over Aries. Yeah,
absolutely. But it was a great opener. And here's the thing: Hideo Itami came out. People were excited to see him. He hits Aries with the GTS. What happened to Hideo Itami that he was out for so long with an injury? What was the injury?
Oh God, it was so long ago. I think it was a shoulder injury, and but he was out a long time. So the idea was that he would probably be coming back any time now, but I don't think at that moment that they thought that, this is a show that the majority of fans thought he's going to make a run in. So it really, I think, worked to his advantage that the crowd popped because when they heard the music, they're like, I know that music. This is great. Now he's back. And they got a real pop because the fans know his background as Kenta. They respect the hell out of him. And this was an opportunity for him to come back into the mix against a guy like Aries who has arrived since he got injured. So it's definitely with Atami an opportunity for him to be against somebody who he can show his skill set against that he doesn't have a history in NXT with. And in the end, the question is, do they put Aries over to move him against Nakamura, or is this planting a seed for these two to eventually fight for the heavyweight title if Aries is a guy who takes it from Nakamura when Shinsuke, hopefully sooner than later, gets called up to the main roster?
But how has Aries been booked? Has he got enough wins under his belt?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't watched the product, but I mean, guy's a real good worker, good look, and yeah, they should take him seriously. And I think he can have some damn good matches with Nakamura.
Yeah, and just to confirm it was a shoulder injury. I just looked it up. I was almost positive it was, but it was way back in, was it like over a year ago that he ended up with the injury. So he was out for a long time, had surgery. But yeah, I mean, the idea of Atami, given his background as Kenta, even though he's older in age at 35, the idea that he can just jump right into the main event scene with that Brooklyn crowd we talked about, that NXT mentality, right. He absolutely is a guy who, when he left, was being built up to that position. I actually think being gone almost builds up the mystique. It's like, okay, he's finally back. Let's see him against some of these newer guys.
Yeah, and it comes back with impact. Good-looking kid comes down. Good to see him back from the injury. Okay, I need a minute to thank the great sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. They're the ones who let me do this for you twice a week for free. And thanks to all you guys for supporting my sponsors like DraftKings. Man, the pro season starts on Thursday. The Broncos take on the Panthers in Denver, and that means Denver fans will see what new starting quarterback Trevor Siemian can do. And hey, if you like what you see on Thursday, you'll be able to draft Trevor to play your one-week fantasy team at DraftKings. Playing one-week fantasy at DraftKings means no season-long commitments. You ain't stuck with the same players week after week, and you don't have to worry about injuries decimating your lineup. And right now, in DraftKings Week 1 contest, you have a shot to win a piece of the $100,000 in prizes they're awarding just this weekend. And if you use my promo code Steve, you can play for free with your first deposit. So get to DraftKings now and pick your contest, draft your players, and follow your team live. And DraftKings has something for everyone. They have 50-50 contests where the top half of all entries win cash. They also have a contest for beginners, so you have a chance to win even if you aren't an armchair quarterback. You can create custom leagues or join an existing league. So get to DraftKings.com now and use the promo code Steve to play for free with your first deposit. Again, that's my promo code Steve at DraftKings.com to play for free for your share of $100,000 this weekend. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details. Let's go to the second match. I'll let you start this one off. It was Billie Kay. I did some research on her from Sydney, Australia, and then Ember Moon. And I'd seen the GIFs or the memes, whatever they call them on Twitter, about the finish of this match. But I didn't know anything about Ember Moon. How long has she been around?
You know what? I didn't know a lot about either of these women going into the match, but I know that they made a big deal in this match that because they had the recent call-ups, that they have been replenishing the division. They did so again even on this week's TV show with a couple of women, and they've been trying to replenish it because they with Asuka probably going up to the main roster, but losing Bayley to the main roster and her getting a big push, they have to replenish this division. And so they have Ember Moon, first of all, has been wrestling since 2007, and she's best known for her work in Shimmer, the women's only group.
Okay.
And so she had a good reputation there, and then she just came over to NXT last year. And so there were a lot of eyes wondering, how is she going to fit in here? And is she going to be somebody who can fill out it? Because NXT has such a good reputation for the women's division. I mean, the main roster just built around these women.
Absolutely.
And so Ember Moon came in, and the idea is she is a memorable worker. The way we talk about No Way Jose being memorable. Ember Moon presents herself in a way where you're like, all right, she's more than just somebody just learning. She's somebody who's been there, figured out who she is. What did you think of her presentation and the way that she carried herself?
Oh, I loved it, and I love the fact that, she was kind of yelling or growling, to show that aggressiveness or the fire, and she was uninhibited. So I thought, in my notes here, I have nice work and sequences. I love that hold by Billie Kay. I thought, from a technical standpoint, the comeback came kind of from nowhere, and not in a traditional sense. Billie Kay went over with Ember Moon went over with a flying stunner, I guess you could call it. It was spectacular. I have a very nice match by both women. I love the aggressive nature by both of them, in particular the aggressive by Billie Kay. I've never heard of this chick. And, she's kind of early on in the first couple of the sequences, a little bit of telegraphing, but, man, I thought both girls could pretty damn good workers, both of them right now. Love the fire from Ember Moon. Now, that finish, I don't know how you pull off that finish. I mean, it kind of reminds me of an advanced version of Bob Eaton dropping that Alabama Jam. When you come down your butt all those times from all those turnbuckles, it can really catch up to you. But I really enjoyed that match. Both girls were really aggressive. Billie Kay really laying in those shots on the back of Ember Moon. Ember Moon with tremendous fashion. There was nothing manufactured about it. It was real. I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. I love the aggressive nature, and I give that match a big thumbs up.
Did you is the stunner off the ropes like that, a leaping stunner, something that you would kind of raise an eyebrow at, going, I don't know if you can pull that off against most opponents, or is that not something that seems overly dangerous or complex or difficult to make look good?
Wow, I don't know. Just from looking at it, Billie Kay was right there in the right spot at the right time, and she sold it tremendous. I mean, she went stiff as a board just laying there. It seems kind of risky. As long as the person's there and, she keeps landing on her backside the way she is, it'll be fine. But is it risky? Yes, I have to say yes to that. Now, is it a health risk every time she does it? Is someone's life at stake? No. It's just one of those things that you don't pull off. I don't think every single time you do it, but she sure nailed it on this one, and that's all that counts for right now because this is what we're talking about.
Well, one little touch in this match, too, that I made note of on the commentary, we talk about a sporting event-like feel. Ember Moon winning means more if she beats somebody. And it was just a little comment from Corey Graves, but I remember him saying that, Billie Kay, all this hype for Ember Moon arriving, this 9-year veteran arriving here in NXT at TakeOver, but Ember Moon, he said that Billie Kay felt that she wasn't receiving the hype she deserved. And kind of talked about how maybe she's been resting on her laurels and that this is a time for her to step up and show that she shouldn't be leapfrogged. And so when Ember Moon won, there was something at stake. It's the way that MMA matches are sold, Steve. In a 90-second video package, UFC just owns and hypes this guy. Lost 3 of his last 6 after winning 5 in a row. He hasn't been good against top competition. This is make or break for him. And if he loses, it means more. The match meant more because the announcers told you the backstory. So I like that little touch too, and it made it seem like Ember Moon was fighting somebody who had something to lose and something to gain.
I also liked just all of the work by both women, and both women had a different look to them than anybody else on NXT roster. Ember Moon with the kind of contacts and just her outfit, and she's a beautiful lady. And then same with Billie Kay, but kind of statuesque, tall. When I first saw her, not that I've seen a whole lot of Keller Kowalski's work, but just her stature, the way she's kind of tall and slender. She doesn't look like anybody else on that roster, and she's beautiful as well. I thought the sky's the limit for both these gals. So a great opportunity, and they made the most out of it. And I give that match a thumbs up. Let's talk about. This is a real good one here for me. And you told me a little bit about this. You gave me a little bit of heads up or a spoiler. The Bobby Roode arrives things. And, I tell you what, this kid has been around for a long time. And all of his time down there in TNA. And, mechanically great. And he talked about the it factor down there. And I don't think they really know what to do with the guy. But I tell you what, he comes in, and it's Bobby Roode versus Andre Cien Almas, a guy who I've never heard from before. This Bobby Roode glorious vignette was off the charts. I didn't know what they were going to do with this guy. I've watched him for a long time. I like what he does. He's a good-looking guy. What did you think about the glorious vignette?
I did. Yeah, I thought you just sometimes you just got to go all in. You know what I mean? You just have to go all in on somebody, and they just went all in and just decided we're going to take Bobby Roode's robe and the it factor, but we're going to give it that amplification that only WWE can do.
Yeah, and Tell me a little bit about Andre Cien Almas. This kid has a good look, damn good worker. Never heard of him before.
Well, yeah, he's a 26-year-old. Really came in with experience in Mexico and Japan. A real heralded signing. They took the mask off him, and there was some people disgruntled with that. They sort of felt like you want to respect that. He's used to working under the mask. It worked for him, and he's a second-generation wrestler. And the idea of taking off the mask and then giving him the outfit they gave him, there's a feeling that they're not doing him justice. It's sort of the opposite of Robert Roode. They gave him this great look. They didn't necessarily do by his fans who really thought he would come in, because they kind of messed up with Mystico and in Sin Cara. I don't know if they messed up, but it just didn't work out well. And he was a bad fit for the locker room. He was a bad fit for the style. And I think that there was hope that this would work out better. And so far, it hasn't. It's been a rough start for him with the suspenders and the top hat and the mask and the beard. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I didn't know that this kid had wrestled under a mask or a hood, so I wasn't missing anything. I thought the suspenders when the kid came out, I'm thinking, not so fast. I don't know about this. But then they start working, and the kid's a hell of a damn worker. So, man, if you look past that, he's got a good look to him. He's a good-looking guy. So the mask, sometimes here in America, the mask can only take you so far. I mean, for Rey Mysterio, the 619, it took him to the top of the moon. But I don't know. I think taking a mask off with a kid that looks like this is a good thing. He's a good-sized kid. He can work his ass off. But here in my notes, loved the Bobby Roode entrance. Just loved it. That glorious song, whoever wrote that presentation, the crowd bought into that hook, line, and sinker. It was the first time I'd seen it or heard it. And on a 1 to 10, that was a damn 10 entrance.
I agree. I mean, the thing is, if you want Bobby Roode to be a heel, is it too good? Are you making it such? It's sort of like No Way Jose. Well,
that's a good question.
A babyface.
That's a good question, because I didn't know really. I thought, they had intended him to be a heel, but the crowd was so behind him, maybe they'll let the crowd feel its way and decide then. But, I thought, hey, they're just going to let the crowd pick. I went out with a preconceived notion that he would work as heel, but that being said, you're right. Yeah,
so, and again, I don't think that's going to change in Toronto. Bobby being a Canadian, I think he's going to get a huge babyface pop. I don't want to be the babyface opposite him. And I guess from a booking standpoint, you can, if they knew that it was going to work so much, or if it was going to work so well, is it fair for Andrade to put him in there when he's already kind of struggling to get over? And Andrade in Mexico, he faced the same thing. He was supposed to be this adored babyface, second-generation wrestler, and kind of like happened with Roman Reigns a little bit, the fans rejected him, and they ended up turning him heel, and he got over more. I don't know if they're headed to the same path with him this way, or in WWE, but there is something about him. And again, that happened with the mask. Now, without the mask, the dynamic might be a little bit different. He lost his mask right before coming to WWE, in part because I think he suspected he might be wrestling without the mask in WWE, and he wanted to cash in a mask match. But he's somebody to watch, because he was when he wrestled at age 18, he was supposedly this breakout star. He was that number 1 overall draft pick, and he's had a good track record of getting better, showing personality in wrestling. And it felt like the Bobby Roode entrance completely overshadowed in such a way that I think in retrospect it was a mistake to put him in there with Andrade if the goal was to keep Andrade strong. So it'll be interesting where they go from here. I think the priority is on going forward with Roode as is, and then trying to figure out if Andrade needs to be repackaged.
Yeah, but I think Andrade's a good enough worker that, hey, repackage him or take him suspenders off of him. But I love the look, the kind of bearded goatee, whatever that was. But without the mask, again, like I didn't know he'd worn a mask. So I think the future is bright for this kid. I like his presence. I like his charisma. That little spot where he ends up, hanging on the second, third ropes after Bobby allegedly threw him in there. I believe that, he's a good-looking guy and his facial features work for him rather than being covered up with a mask here in the United States. Now, on a commentary note, here's a commentary straight from Corey Graves. This guy has such an ego. He took a Blade helicopter from Manhattan to Brooklyn just so he wouldn't have to be here too long. Great line, Corey.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. They're going all in. They're treating this as a shoot. They're embellishing that character. And so in my notes I love the character building of the package. the match and the commentary. I enjoyed the pacing as it was not a spot fest. I enjoyed Rude and his new gimmick. I enjoyed the performance of Andrade, and he has a good look, and his work was solid. I enjoyed this match. And, of course, Rude goes over with whatever it was. I thought it was a great pacing. It was all about building the character of Rude here. And it wasn't to send Andrade out as a jobber. He was the supporting member. He was his opponent. But this match was built for Bobby Roode and the glorious thing. And it was in fact glorious. It was that good. And, again, the match wasn't you're not going to win match of the year.
Yeah, it wasn't designed to be a 4-star match.
It wasn't designed to be that. It's about getting that character over. There's plenty of times to have a match of the year. This was a very good match, perfectly paced. Everything they did meant something, and I loved the story. And it was refreshing not to see everybody ricocheting off the ropes, guys jerking guys off the mat and winging them in, or not giving them a chance to sell. So it was a breath of fresh air. Didn't know what to expect out of it. What I found out was this is a great gimmick for Rude. Andrade's a damn good worker, and the sky's the limit. Rude goes over. It's a character-building moment, and the crowd loved the hell out of it. Win-win.
And it's not that they didn't give Andrade a chance. I mean, he did a really nice springboard corkscrew plancha from inside the ring onto Rude at ringside. He got to show that he's got something. And I mean, he was smooth. You see that magic that Omos has that people want to see WWE capitalize on. But you're right. This was about ultimately Rude making a statement by saying, I'm the veteran. I'm new to NXT, but I'm the veteran, and I'm putting you're 13 years younger than me. I'm putting you in your place. I'm better than you. And it's part of the journey that Andrade Cien Omos is on, too, which is he went up against a guy with this reputation that preceded him, and he lost. And that can be used to Omos's advantage if they play that right.
And here's the thing, Andrade, fired up a couple of times in there real hard and organically. It wasn't forced. The kid has fire, and that crowd just, because I think they were so enamored with the Rude thing and the glorious thing, didn't quite come for him, in the sense that he wanted. But the timing was there. His effort was correct. It was just that crowd was so enamored with Rude or whatever, or they didn't really know who Andrade was, or the push, or everything that WWE has been doing for him so far hasn't built him up to that status. But within the structure of the match, I think this kid's got it, and he's going to be just fine.
I think part of what you're seeing with the NXT crowds, too, is they're more familiar with ROH, TNA, and New Japan, and not CMLL. And so I think that there's less of a grace period, or they're being less forgiving of what they don't like about what they're seeing with Andrade's gimmick. I don't think they're rejecting his presentation or gimmick as much as they're rejecting him so far with the hat and the suspenders. And I think that NXT management just needs to change course. But there's plenty of time. Rude's 39. They got to decide if he's going to be a guy who beats Shinsuke for the title and has a nice run headlining NXT shows, or are they going to try to transition Rude to the main roster because this glorious gimmick is so captivating that you just have to go with it. You got to move it to the main roster and try to capitalize on it.
Oh, to me, this is one of the most refreshing, coolest, funnest. And he's not trying to be fun or funny with it. I just thought it was just tailor-made for Bobby Roode. At 39 years old, Roode still has plenty in the tank. I don't know his bump meter, but I've followed his past. He never has really taken crazy bumps. That being said, any bump can hurt you. But with this kind of gimmick to really give you, to revitalize you and really define you, and him define the gimmick, I think it's a match made in heaven. So I wish him all the luck, and I hope that WWE doubles down, or NXT, whatever they decide to do with him at this age, and Man, I retired at 38, and I left a lot of money on the table. At 39, this kid's got plenty of years left in him, so run with him.
No, I agree with that. The glorious introduction seems like a really ramped up version of stunning Steve Austin with the shiny robe, the even the music, the superstar music. It does kind of feel like, not that it's inspired by that, and that certainly wasn't where you ended. That wasn't your lane where you made most of your money. But I think Rude there's a little bit of Terry Taylor, a little bit of Triple H, but there's a little bit of old school stunning Steve in the ring entrance.
Well, and I kind of go back. I don't really see it, but that's because I've been hitting the head with so many steel chairs. Just because of the name, and he's a good-looking guy. Sometimes I kind of think of Rick Rude when I think of Bobby Roode, and he's kind of a serious-natured promo by nature. but he's his own man. I love the gimmick. I thought it was a really good match. I hope both guys are proud of themselves. And props to Andre. And I hope he gets the break he's looking for. It seems seemingly Bobby Roode has a break with this glorious thing. Hopefully they book it correctly. All right, got to give big ups to my close personal friend and longtime sponsor, Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. DDP Yoga has changed countless lives, including some of your favorite pro wrestlers like Jake Roberts, Scott Hall, Mick Foley, AJ Styles, and Chris Jericho. And now DDP has taken his life-changing program to a whole nother level with the DDP Yoga Now app on iOS and Android devices. So now you ain't got no more excuses about why you can't start DDP Yoga. The app means you can do it anytime, anywhere. And the cool thing about the app is that you can track more than just DDP Yoga workouts. By connecting to a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, you can track your calories and heart rate in real time, no matter where you are or what you're doing. All the fitness features like pain tracking, measurements, progress photos, and much more are completely free in the app. And DDP Yoga Now subscribers can do the original workouts, the new 2.0 workouts, and live workouts from the DDP Yoga Performance Center. So get your workout on, and get on the DDP Yoga program using the DDP Yoga Now app. And to make it even easier than he's already made it, for a limited time, you can get the DDP Yoga DVDs for 20% off, plus 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin. That's ddpyoga.com/Austin to take advantage of this great deal. Commit now. Change your life now. Go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. Hey, they had an Orange County Choppers trophy that they made for the Cruiserweight Classic trophy with Triple H. They did that little segment, and then all of a sudden there's a Johnny Gargano, and watch this. Listen here, Tommaso Ciampa T-shirt vignette. He gave me a little bit of grief on the last podcast for mispronouncing his name and said only his grandmother mispronounced him. So anyway, the Revival vignette setting up the tag match with Gargano and Ciampa. Nicely done. And let's go ahead and talk about this match. I had these guys on my podcast. It's the Revival, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder versus Gargano and Ciampa. And this was a barn burner from start to finish. And I think, as you said, I think it was one of your favorite matches of 2016.
It was. I am a – people listen to me all the time. No, I am a stickler for efficiency. I've just been following this too long to stand by and watch guys use up 2 years' worth of bumps in one match where 95% of the bumps are forgotten by the time the match is over. This is a clinic in how to take in 2016 audiences who think they know everything. They're gonna chant "You deserve it" at Kevin Owens when he wins a world title on Raw. You deserve it, even though he's a heel and he won in completely unfair circumstances. Triple H basically winning it for him. They're still gonna pop for him because, well, he has his indie credibility, and we know he paid his dues. So those smart fans who think they know everything, what do? They react instantly and to getting totally invested in Dash and Dawson as heels. I loved it. It showed you can still do it. Every once in a while, somebody says, "Oh, Wade, you're a little too romantic for the way things were done in the past, and you're showing your age and wanting to. It's not the 1980s anymore." And I'm like, I believe I know what I'm talking about when I say that there are things that were lost in the Monday Night War era that absolutely translate into any century, much less any decade, Steve, when it comes to watching people fight and how to promote it.
Yeah, I loved, going for that first hot tag, and one of the guys was there, I guess, to pull Gargano off, or whoever it was, and then the pulling the ref when Dawson topples in the ring, and then there's a tag made. Referee didn't see it. Referee, I forgot his name. Hellacious performance. He was always in the right place at the right time. Perfect timing. There's so much teamwork in this match because it's a tag team match, and for the past several years, we've seen a boatload of tag team matches, but never really as these guys operating as a unit. This is what the Revival preached to themselves, no pun intended. They work as a unit. And so there's so much. The tags when Dawson's sending a guy in from just whipping a guy in from an Irish whip or from a headlock position to Dawson to Dash on the outside, or vice versa, pulling the ref, powdering, Jesus Christ, a lost art, powdering, starting that match off, grabbing that arm, and not being afraid to take a powder. So just in my notes, I have incredible match, one of my favorite matches I've seen. Love the body lock by Dawson. You don't see that all the time. Just a small thing. Love Dawson. Oh, right when they go into, before he goes in to put the, inverted figure 4 on, I love the fact that when Dash blindsided Gargano's knee from behind with a cheap shot, that Dawson actually had the wherewithal to grab the tag rope before tagging in for the finish. I mean, that's such a minute point, but it meant so much to me. Just natural instinct, and because the kid's so smart, it's almost like an FU to the babyface, because we're cheating, but now we're playing by the rules.
Yes, totally.
It was just. I mean, I talked to those guys. As I watched this match, I started smiling, and by the time I was finished with it, I was laughing because I was having so much enjoyment watching all of these techniques employed that have been lost through the cracks, through the years, because tag team wrestling has ceased to exist at the level these guys have it at. And so the referee work was awesome, as the timing and teamwork of revival. Gargano and Ciampa were terrific. Those guys had tremendous fire. They sold their ass off. There was that one ring clearing moment where they both got up on the turnbuckles and yelled to the crowd, and that was organic and that was real, and it wasn't pandering. Nobody weighed in this match pandered to the crowd or begged them to cheer. That crowd bought in because it was a hellacious match. And I tell you what, that Gargano and Ciampa make a great tag team. The standing O for Gargano and Ciampa at the end, I love the exit by Gargano and Ciampa. And what I mean by this is this was a designed part of the show where they were so disappointed that illegal clip by Dash and then the inverted figure 4 after they had jumped off the top turnbuckle to set that hold up. And those two guys were so disappointed. Listen, here's the thing. When I first went to the WWE, I was getting beat like a drum every damn night. I was working with guys like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, so I was happy to be in the ring with them. And I was, paying my dues over there. They beat me like a drum every night. When these guys got beat, there were so many false finishes, and you just knew that this was the one, just by the way Gargano or Ciampa was hooking that leg, that this could be the last one, and it never was until that screw job finish by the heels. But when they showed those two guys just spent standing there in the ring, all the disappointment on their face, their world had just collapsed, and that crowd appreciated that performance, and those guys kind of gave each other a little bit of a hug, and that crowd had invested emotionally in those two guys. Revival had been the epic heels they were, left with the heat. There was real heat there at the finish. They left. What a great moment. When going down in defeat, those guys rose up and got over more than they were by losing. Sure, it'd been great if they won the tag titles. It'd been great. But they lost, and they got over by losing. Or, let me explain. They got over more than they were by losing.
Absolutely. And I first of all, I'm really happy you liked the match, obviously, because right as it happened, right as it was happening, or right when it was over, I texted you and I'm like, "Are you watching this?" And my credibility was on the line a little bit. If you were like, "Yeah, it was all right, Wade, but what's the big deal?" I really, and one of the reasons I texted you as soon as I watched it and I thought of you is that it's tag wrestling. It's the great 80s style tag team era subtleties that both teams employed, and I knew that you would recognize things that even my eye can't see. As a wrestler, put together those matches, worked as a Hollywood Blondes, did so much. It's not just tag wrestling stuff that they did; it was single stuff they did. Like there was one point where Dawson went for the pin, and it was Ciampa who kicked out, and and these are little subtle things that mean more than another dive out of the ring or another flying Superman punch. He looked a little exasperated, and he had this moment of hesitation because he was thinking, what should I do next? Because that didn't work. I'm frustrated. And he didn't just know what he was going to do next. He took that extra 1 second not to pause, like you said, not to pander for boos or beg for cheers or get cheap heat. It was a frustrated heels thinking, what strategically should I do next to win? And I want to see, to me, I'm going to enjoy a match more when it seems like wrestlers are trying to devise a strategy to win, not get a "this is awesome" chant.
Right, and another great moment in there. I'm just kind of reliving this thing in my head as you're talking. was the fact that Scott Dawson was in there with Ciampa. He fakes the punch. Ciampa ducks. Well, it was a setup. Hits him with the DDT. Later on in that same sequence, same thing happens. Goes for the punch. He bites for it. Goes for the DDT, but Ciampa reverses it. They go down into an armbar. It's a submission hold. A dash has to come from the other side of the ring to hit Ciampa on the back to break the hold. So at first he fools him, and then Ciampa fools him back. So little things, the little things like that were premier in the match as well. So I got a kick out of the match. It was one of the best matches I've seen in a long time. And let me see, am I leaving anything out? I think we've got it covered. But again, good work, great work by the referee, and just a hellacious story. I would have liked, maybe to see a little bit more. If I was going to pick on anything, I would have liked to see Gargano, who made the comeback, stand in there and just let those guys feed 2 or 3 more times than they did before they go into the thing where they did the wheel kick. That was fantastic. But I would just a little bit more bump and feed just to clear house because they'd been so devastating in the heat. That's nitpicking. That's just a fine detail, and that's just me. Again, you couldn't make this match any more better than it was. That's just food for thought.
And another thing that I liked about this is it was such a contrast to what Ring of Honor had done the night before on their pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor, where there was almost a sense of, I don't want to, it sounds maybe overstating it, but at the risk of overstating it, a sense of desperation that the wrestlers felt they would lose the crowd if they weren't doing something at every moment that was going to possibly get them a "This is awesome" chant or an ooh or an ah. And what I loved about this tag match is it had a confidence of patience. They knew that the last 8 minutes of this match would mean more if the first 11 built slowly, told the story, established some long-term selling, but they didn't lose the crowd. They weren't arrogant, like, well, we're just going to hold this chin lock because that's how it was done in the mid-'70s. Like, it wasn't like this, we're going to redefine things. They held the crowd, but they did so in a way that I think the grand total energy and heat expended by the fans emotionally was greater by the end of the 19 minutes because they paced themselves so well in the first 11.
Absolutely, and the story that they were telling was so good. It made sense. It was logical. And they weren't trying to pop the crowd from start to finish by, hey, we're going to give you a razzle-dazzle high spot so you can cheer for the baby faces. Hey, man, They took powders. You got mad at them for taking powders. They shined the babies up, and it came time to get some heat. They did, and then they kicked it into overdrive, and then the illegal chop block on Gargano. Gargano, man, if Gargano could have held on, nitpick one more time, just 3 or 4 seconds, looked like he's going to tap, but no, and then finally tap. If he'd have milked that a frog hair more, it maybe could have been more epic. That's hindsight being 2020.
Yeah. No, this is. I want every wrestler to watch this match and understand why it worked, and understand the economy of bumps, the economy of high spots, and the psychology that led to a crescendo. Now, granted, the crowd had not been burned out by the undercard. You talked about the match earlier by design being, that proverbial 2.5, 2 3/4 star match. It's there to serve a purpose, not steal the show, and this match benefited from that too. Part of it is where it was on the card, the length of the show. If this was an hour number 4 after 3 other title matches that all went 20 minutes. I don't know that they would have been able to hold the crowd. So part of the credit for this match working so well, most of it goes to the wrestlers, of course, but part of it goes to the structure of the show itself and the wisdom that NXT employs, that these ridiculously long pay-per-views that WWE's putting on, pushing 6 hours, they actually, it's a disservice to the fans and the talent that they're, just because they can, they're going 6 hours counting the pre-show now.
Yeah, and volume or quantity, give me quality all day long. Give me 2.5 hours of badass, not 6 hours of, hey, here we are. And so to finish up on your point, this was a classic case where these guys, I mean, what was risky about this match? What was off the charts dangerous about this match? What was the crazy high spot in this match? There wasn't. You cared about the baby faces. They had so much fire. They had such great teamwork. You hated the heels. And this is the kind of match you can have a career for 20 years by working like this because you still can. Everybody, wants to go out and get noticed every now and then. All the crazy whirligig stuff. Man, when you work the economy, the style like this, it is so refreshing to watch guys go out there and tell a story rather than defy death and have that crowd hook, line, and sinker from the beginning to the finish and build it to the crescendo that you spoke about and knock it out of the park. Bases loaded. I loved it.
I would compare this match, if we had to pull a match from YouTube, to I think it was on the show where Sting beat Flair in Baltimore in July of '90, but I could be wrong. But there was a Southern Boys Midnight Express match that I loved, and Dash and Dawson, they've got, they talk about the Andersons. I think they're a little bit more Midnight Express. I think they look more Andersons. I think they're a little more contemporary with their moves. They're a little more Midnight Express, but maybe a blend. But Gargano and Ciampa, in some ways, remind me of Tracy Smothers and Scott Armstrong. And I don't know where I pull that from. Sometimes it's hard to know why you draw the comparison. But when you talk about showing fire, you talk about, the detail work, they were such a good team for a span of time in late 80s, early 90s. And for some reason, Gargano and Ciampa kind of harken back to them in my mind.
Yeah, both guys with a completely different look. Gargano kind of the white meat babyface out of the two, but both of them great. I think they're a great team, and they could be great individually. So I was happy for those guys to be in that match as well because they a great heel tag team, but a great babyface tag team as well. Let's move on. Let's talk about Asuka versus Bayley. There was a video package setting the story. Bayley comes to the ring. They got all the little, the blow-up figures and everything like this, and I'm a big Bayley fan. She comes to the ring. She gets in, and she got her work cut out for her because Asuka's been on a tear lately. And then Asuka comes out, and that entrance of hers was quite spectacular. It wasn't quite as on the level as the glorious thing that Bobby Roode did, but that flowing thing from back with that the mask, the Asian, whatever they call that. She just looked. It was shot well, and it was spectacular. I loved it. Let's get to the match.
Well, I want to real quick say, Steve, I think that this was Asuka's best ring entrance, and I think I think it's worth underlining it. She seems really comfortable in her skin in front of the NXT crowd in a way that I don't think she had been previously. Really? So I think that something came together on this show for her, because I wasn't sold on her body language. I thought there was something a little bit awkward or orchestrated about her that felt like she was memorizing where to step and where to turn and how to react. This, to me, felt like a star. She really, I think, reached a comfort level as a star in NXT in this moment. And I thought Bayley was selling the emotions of it, whether it was on purpose or not, that this was her finale in NXT, and that kind of played into it. She was in the ring almost losing it emotionally during Asuka's ring entrance, not out of intimidation, but I think out of the enormity of the moment. And you had asked me earlier about that video at the beginning of the show. Where were you a year ago? And I kind of forgot to address that, but that tied in here, I think, because Bayley talked about a year ago, I had this moment of my life professionally, and I think that she was thinking about that while Asuka was coming to the ring, thinking about what a year she's had and how this is the final chapter of one part of her career.
And that was the night last year when her and Sasha Banks knocked it out of the park.
They did. Yep. One of my favorite
during this match. Yeah, and it was nice during this match to see Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, and Charlotte ringside. I mean, they showed Ric Flair there earlier, but those three women who are so important right now on the scene and have kind of been leading the charge were there at ringside. And so you could see everybody was very emotionally involved in this. And so, yes, I think Bayley was reflecting a little bit of that. I thought, and speaking of the match, let me just the brass tacks notes, and then let's go back over this. I thought segmented work in the beginning, kind of back and forth. There were some cracks in there. I'm not a big fan of the run-ins or the send-ins to the turnbuckle from mid-ring. They just kind of look a little too easy. But that was me nitpicking the first half of the match. I really enjoyed the last third of this match. That's when the stakes started getting high, the tension started to rise. I really liked the finish. I really liked both girls. I liked the hug at the end. The thank you, Bayley, from the crowd. It was nice seeing Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte at ringside. And we'll go back and talk about this match, but here's the thing. Right there at the end with Bayley in the middle of the ring and the crowd standing that little girl crying at ringside, and Bayley hugged her.
Yep.
Yeah, she's a big Bailey fan, and Bailey had lost the match. And that little girl, probably 6, 7, 8 years old, was crying, and Bailey went over and gave her a hug. That's how much these kids love this young lady. And I think she's super over, and she's very talented. I just was a little discombobulated with the beginning of the match, but that last third was lights out good, and I love the finish.
It was different than last year's match, and I agree with you. I think the second half was stronger than the first half. I think that the thing with Asuka when she's really on, and Bailey she doesn't look like she can, but she can, is dish it back. The physicalness of this, and that's one of the things that people like about Asuka in her whole career in Japan, is how physically she brings it. I was watching the Liv Morgan Aliyah match on NXT from this past Wednesday, 2 younger women coming up through the ranks, and by the end, it's sort of like with Carmella sometimes too, or even the Bella sometimes. It feels soft. It feels like, Lou Thez would always say it derogatory. All they do is they're tumblers now. They're tumblers now.
Right.
And there's something about the women's matches where it looks a little bit like they're tumbling. I think what people love about Asuka is, it's a throwback to Jumping Bomb Angels a little bit, in that there's some high spots, but there's a toughness to what she does. And Bailey was able to match it, but she does so with her personality. It's unexpected. Now, if you follow her, you expect it, but her body type and her personality and what gets her over, and I hope she doesn't lose this in the way that she's allowed to work or instructed to work on the main roster, is it's unassuming, and then when she gets fired up, and she got fired up here, she fired up so well. We talk about the way Greg Gagne would get the hot tag in the AWA, Steve, as one of the best guys coming in for a hot tag. Bailey almost gave herself a hot tag in this match when Asuka just started hitting her hard, and she's like, that's it. That's it. I've had enough. The adrenaline is here. I'm turning it up. It's pedal to the metal, and it's just the crowd was right with her with it. So that's where things really picked up near the end. Yeah,
I just wish they would have. Again, the beginning just was what it was, but by the time, again, for me, it was that back third, and that's I'd talked about it with a friend of mine. In skimming over the pay-per-view, I caught the last 4 minutes of it, and someone asked me what I thought about the match. I said, well, I just caught the last 4 minutes, but it was epic. So the finish was phenomenal, hard-hitting. Didn't hurt Bailey at all. They're pushing Asuka like a monster right now. But just the way Asuka, I don't know whether she's construed as a heel or babyface because I don't watch the show. But the way she, Bailey obviously extremely disappointed and not winning, and Asuka just kind of nudging her, hey, get up, and they hugged, and it was just like.
It was actually like Josh Barnett and Andre Arlovski last night. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, Steve, on Fight Pass, but Arlovski lost and Barnett just nudged him up and said, "Get up, let me raise your hand." And it was kind of like that. 2 people went to war. There was earned respect, and the winner helped the loser up and said, "You brought out a great fight in me."
Absolutely, that's what I liked about that. And again, I think the crowd was giving Bailey a standing O and cheering for her, and that little girl crying. So she's really, really over. The loss didn't hurt her at all. I think it could have. Everybody wants to win, but when you do lose, you can get over. You can remain the same, or you can dip down. She got over even more than she was, and she's got a great future ahead of her. And I love what she's doing right now. And props to Asuka for bringing it. It was a hell of a contest, and all the girls ringside really added to the moment as well, I thought.
I like that NXT does that. I like that in NXT, the celebrities are the wrestlers, like at a UFC event. And in WWE, the celebrities are whichever celebrity is willing to show up and be on camera. And I don't think that's – I sound like I'm saying that's a bad thing that WWE does it. I get why they do it. I think they should do it. But in NXT, they have this great circumstance that they take advantage of, which is there is alum. It's like at a college football game. If an old Heisman Trophy winner from 5 years ago shows up, you show them. NXT takes advantage of that, and it's something that they could choose not to do. We don't want to draw attention to the talent that left us, but there's no reason to do that. What you want to do is make it seem like what's happening tonight is so important that not only does Charlotte show up, but in the past, John Cena shows up. Like the top stars from the main roster want to be there to see this next generation or these veterans who they might be having to face next show up.
All right, let's move on, Wade. Let's talk about the main event. Samoa Joe versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And they had the video package. It showed Mick and Noel Foley at ringside. Let me give a shout-out to Mick and Noel. After SummerSlam, I got a chance to watch 15 minutes of the first Holy Foley. I haven't got a chance to see the rest of them. But I have thoroughly enjoyed that first half of that show. I heard that the other episodes were even better, but I really enjoyed it. So congrats to Mick and Noel. From what I've heard, the show is very well received, and I enjoyed what I saw. So it was good to see them ringside, and so proud of Mick for getting the GM job or whatever they call him, and also the reality show there. And those two are just dynamic on TV today. The whole family is, and I like the way they're shooting it. So congrats to them. Finn Balor was at ringside. Let's talk about the entrance. As violinist comes out, and he is off the charts good. He plays this song for Shinsuke Nakamura to come out as he is a challenger. And I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of the Shinsuke Nakamura guy. That guy played a hell of a violin. But by the time Shinsuke got in the ring, man, I was ready for that match to start. It was just a little too much, a little too long for my likings. Please give me your thoughts, Wade.
Well, for people who think we don't disagree often enough, I'm going to disagree with you here. I loved that ring entrance. Every second of it, I loved it. I was emotionally moved by the live violin playing. I thought it matched the moment that you have this big star from Japan getting his title shot on this premier NXT annual event. I thought Shinsuke was fantastic. It was long. I'm no doubt about it, and I wouldn't have wanted it to go longer, but I really relished I thought it tapped into the emotions of the crowd. I thought it was just having that violin play, that one of my favorite entrance songs ever, and to have that violin play it live in person like that, I thought it was one of those entrances where sometimes WrestleMania goes a little over the top with the costumes or the extras that are part of it, and that's great. That's part of WrestleMania. This was NXT's great kind of zone of taking a regular ring entrance and making it special by having somebody play the violin live.
Well, it was cool. Like I said, that guy played his ass off, and he was spectacular. And as is Shinsuke. The guy is charismatic. What a worker. We'll get into the match. But, boy, I tell you what, I was ready for that match to start way
I don't blame
sooner.
You know what? I will say this, too, Steve. Joe's entrance was a perfect counter. It was like, boom, 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 like Joe's all business. I thought it was a perfect contrast, too. So I was ready for the match, but that's because I thought the ring entrances actually set the tone really well with Joe's contrast, all business, coming out as champion.
By the time I got through watching the entire pay-per-view and saw that entrance, I stopped writing down my notes. But I did write this down as I was sitting on my couch. I have hell of a match, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Man, and here's the thing, Wade. I didn't know what to expect when these guys went out there because I know what kind of work Joe can do. I've only seen a limited amount of Shinsuke stuff, but obviously, he can work his ass off. We all know that. The charisma is off the charts. I didn't know what Joe was going to do. And here's the thing. Let me say this about Samoa Joe. I wish he'd have been around in WWE back when I was in my prime because this is a guy that I would have loved to tangle with. That's what I think about this guy.
That's high praise.
I thought this match was off the charts. They started off with that lockup and then, a couple of those kicks and that one time where when Joe slapped Shinsuke and Shinsuke came right back. and so they set the tone right there. And it wasn't just chain wrestling and high spots and, it was just that kind of, Japanese-style match. And the crowd, for me, didn't really know what to expect. And it was a different crowd. It was a different kind of match than you traditionally can get into by the story that they're telling. As far as a babyface shine for X amount of times, heel cut off, put the baby back on top, transition into some heat. It was back and forth, but just the telling of the story, the holds that they were working, the scrambles that they went through. I love this match. And I'd like to hear what you think about it because I didn't hear what you said about it on your show.
Yeah.
Love the finish, the Kinshasa, whatever they call it, finally at the end for the very finish. But there was lots of great work here. Sometimes, me being a nitpicker that I am, there could have been a little bit more sense of urgency. Early on, Joe was taking his time on those covers, and this was picked up by the commentary team about, hey, Joe's taking his time here. And, Joe knew it was going to be a war, going back to all of his other matches from ROH and stuff like that. This guy has been around the horn. But a couple of times in there, just an explosion of aggressiveness because he is a little bit of a bully. He does have that mean streak just to change the pace of Frog's Hair. But just a premier match, in my opinion, and I absolutely loved it. You take your part with this and tell me your thoughts.
I'm glad you loved it as much as you did because I wouldn't say that I was doubting myself, but I found myself in the minority in not in this, they could have been a victim of expectations for people who are big fans of their work, but I felt like I liked the match more than most did. But I think I liked it equivalent to you. I thought the deliberateness of Joe, the all business, I'm going to methodically beat you down at my pace, I do things my way, worked well. And again, you have to take into account that, or I think if you're Joe and Nakamura, you have to take into account, and I think they did, that they just finished up this really emotional send-off for Bayley in a match that had an incredible last 5 to 8 minute crescendo. Before that, a tag title match that could have worn out the crowd emotionally a little bit. And so it's long ring entrances, and then you had Joe and Nakamura. It was one of my favorite pre-match mouthing off to each other. They're not yelling, but they're each doing their little hand symbols, their facial expressions. Joe's like, I'm going to put you to sleep. Nakamura's making his just signature, like hilarious, but not in a ha-ha way. Just in a, oh, he totally scored with Joe through his body language and the way he made fun of and reacted to Joe trying to intimidate him. All of that was there. I thought Joe, as the reigning badass champion, paced the beginning of the match really well and did so with a style that I really liked. But then, yeah, it picked up. And I thought that we saw enough of Joe and Shinsuke. I don't know how often we'll see them again. If Shinsuke is going to get called up or Joe's going to get called up before they have a chance to have more matches with each other in NXT. I came out of this match going, they have more in the tank. They can do more. But if that's the only match they ever have, and I don't think it will be, but if it is, I would be satisfied with it being that. I didn't sense this was, we're doing 3 months in a row, let's hold back. Some people looked at it that way. I didn't. I really like this battle of two, I would say, two strong style wrestlers. Joe with the ROH TNA aesthetic to what he does, and Shinsuke with the Shinsuke aesthetic, I guess the New Japan strong style aesthetic, blended with his own unique personality. I loved every second of this. It was one of my favorite pay-per-view main events in a long time, from the ring entrances all the way to the finish. But I'm a huge fan of Joe. I've been a huge proponent of him. I remember talking him up big to Kevin Nash when Kevin Nash had some influence in TNA. Kevin went and watched Joe tapes, and within a month they hired Joe. Kevin was a fan of his. You saying you want to work with him, you would have loved to work with him in your prime, is a big compliment. I am pushing against people who say, no, let Joe stay in NXT. He's a good anchor. He's too old. He's too short, or whatever crazy criticisms they have of him. I want Joe against Lesnar. I want Joe against Cena. I want Joe against Reigns. I think Joe has earned it. He showed it in this match. He can do it. His badass bully, no-nonsense heel persona is what WWE needs right now. And because he won't get cheered, he will make sure fans know that if they cheer him, he's going to knock on their door in the middle of the night and kick their ass. And they're not going to cheer him. And I want to see that kind of heel on the main roster.
Man, you watch that guy, transition to the different holes and the scrambles that they were going through. At first, he grabbed that arm, just working the arm, and Shinsuke really, he's squealing almost, selling that arm. Great salesmanship by Shinsuke. And then, the fire from Shinsuke and returning fire. To me, this was wrestling. This was pro wrestling, and they told a hell of a damn story. I agree. Yeah, just a headlock. But the body language and the posture of that headlock, power. I got you, bitch. You ain't going nowhere. And it was with malice. And he
and Shinsuke tries to throw him off, and Joe's like, "I'm going to squeeze harder."
Yeah.
Yep.
But going to what you said, I think, Samoa Joe goes down. Kinshasa, 2, I guess, it took to beat him. But just some great work in there, building to that finish. But I think just exactly what you said. I'd love to see him work with Brock. I'd love to see him work with Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. Any of the top guys, I'd like to see Joe work with. And for the people to say he ain't fancy enough or he ain't got a good enough body or his ring, hey, man, I'm talking about a worker. Here's the thing. Everything in this business is subjective. But from my eyes, from where I've been, I like the hell out of Samoa Joe, and I'd love to see him on the big stage where he needs to be in there with the best they got because he's one of the best there is, period.
And people who look at, well, if you look 10 years ago, he and AJ were just tearing down TNA rings, and it's like, yeah, if you look at Joe's ROH title reign, I think it's one of the most diverse. It was one of the greatest runs for any world champion. Yes, it was smaller crowds. It didn't sell out the Tokyo Dome, but the diversity of opponents Joe faced and the various styles he wrestled against such a wide array of opponents is among the top tier. Now he's 10 years older. He's slower. He's put on more weight. I think people who know how good he was then use that against him more than they should. Don't use how agile he was back then against the fact that he's not now. He's a different wrestler now. His gimmick isn't going 6 feet in the air with an enziguri. That was him in 2007. That's not him now. What he does now is different, but it's actually, I think, more WWE ready.
Again, the guy's got, just looks like a piece of granite out there. Just to me, the forward tilt, always moving forward, afraid of nothing, mean streak. He can wrestle with the best of them. He's smooth. He's everything. So, in praising Samoa Joe, let me give some praise to Shinsuke Nakamura. Boy, what a charismatic individual this guy is, with a great, unique look, presentation. I love the entrance. I just like less of it. But just him as a performer, I love him. This guy is very special, and you've got to book this guy right. You've got to tell his story right. You've got to keep him special. I mean, we haven't seen a guy like this. I mean, and he's not Great Muta. He's completely different. But, when was the last time you saw a guy from Japan come over here in a big promotion and have the opportunity that could be in front of this guy? You haven't.
No, I like him better than I love Great Muta. I mean, it was phenomenal on those Clash of Champions specials, seeing him come out and the moonsault back when that was like a big deal because people hadn't seen it as much before. I mean, Muta was great. Shinsuke has a chance to go way higher than Muta. He did his first promo.
But you got to understand, but you got to put him in the right perspective. Look where Great Muta was back then, and he was just a guy coming over doing shots. Yeah. He wasn't going to be. This is Shinsuke. He's a part of the main roster. So keep that in perspective. Muta, make no mistake about it. Muta was a badass. I mean, and a superstar. Yes. If you'd have had Muta in WWE back then, or if you could transport him in time to now, the sky's the limit, dude. I mean, they're cut from the same cloth. Different gimmicks, but don't Muta ain't taking second best to nobody.
and the promo Shinsuke cut on NXT this last Wednesday, is talking about I'm world champion. It's the end of the Joe era. It is the strong style era. Like he's got the broken English. It's not like it's not this great promo, but there's something about him it's a little bit Mick Jagger, it's a little bit Michael Jackson, it's a little like there's all Freddie Mercury. It's just Shinsuke, but there's a genuineness and a likability to him that I don't think there's a way that they can turn him heel, and I don't think they'll do that on the main roster. But I hope they don't, because I just think they're going up against a headwind if they try to get fans to boo this guy.
No, don't try to get fans to boo this guy. I mean, look at his look. I mean, good looking. He wears the mouthpiece, the outfit. I mean, he's a fan of Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson. All those guys were influential in him, and his body movement, his language, that rock star kind of look that he has. He's a special guy. You don't turn this guy heel. This guy's a main attraction, and I love the broken English, because he speaks enough of it that you can get his point. He's not going to go out there and talk you into the building, but all he needs to do is get his point across. King of strong style. Hey, if that's, I'm minimizing. So, in the world of PC, as long as he can just get his message across, that's all I need. And I know that when I'm cheering for him, I'm yelling, go Shinsuke. Hey, he understands me, because there's not a language barrier. He's not fluent, but he gets that I love him.
And there's a little bit of a Dusty Rhodes lisp in his promos too. That's actually, again, endearing, charismatic, distinctive. I just think he's phenomenal. And I do want to say too, like with Joe, when I say that he's not the same Joe as back in 2007, he's still like he starts not even at mid ring, but like halfway to the corner. He can turn on the jets and collide in the corner with his opponent with a corner splash. He still has a suddenness to him that goes against what you would expect for somebody his size. And then the drop immediately goes into the drop down enziguri. And then I know he did the dive through the ropes with the flying forearm. He still does that stuff, but it's not what he does. It's not the main thing that gets him over now. It's a little icing on the cake, but it's that badass, this guy, if he went to MMA, I bet he'd do well, persona that he gives off that, again, not a lot of guys on the top have.
Hey, in wrapping up this pay-per-view, I love the production. I love the way they made it look and feel. I think all the performers, all the wrestlers, all the sports entertainers, whatever you want to call them, went out there and crushed this one. This was a great card, and as you mentioned, the way they built this card with purpose and to, shine the light on the right spots that they needed to shine it on for the people to knock it out of the park, and they all did. I really enjoyed this pay-per-view, and I really enjoyed the Brooklyn crowd, and enjoy the fact that it looks so and feels so much different than the other product, which I love. But this is different, and in a sense, they've built their own competition.
They did, and I think what they did is they created this petri dish off to the side to see, hey, does this way work in 2016? Let's stay out of it. Let's let a different visionary, let's let Triple H hire his group, his people. He's been doing this for years, trying to get a group of his people ready who think like him, who he learns from, who he respects, and can execute a different vision. And yes, some of NXT cynically is this side project to build confidence in Wall Street that Triple H can be the guy to take over this company someday. But if it results in a product this damn good, time after time after time, I don't care if there's any ulterior motive. I don't care if Triple H is getting a little too much credit or not enough or what. I don't care about the politics. What I know is this is the type of wrestling that I love, but I also objectively know in my heart it is the type of wrestling that will draw the most money. I really believe that. Steve, I want to sneak in a quick correction because I did a little research on the show. No Way Jose did a similar gimmick with the dancing and the cadence and all that. He did not go by No Way Jose on the indie scene, but he had it's just an amplification, kind of like with Robert Roode, but he played both a heel and a face, did a lot of the dancing, but I don't want to get wrong information out there. No Way Jose was a creation of the NXT people that I was just speaking of.
Okay, and going back to the point you were making about this product, man, well, when I watched this, and it seems like, I don't know what the attendance is these days at the WWE shows. It's probably a little bit down, the ratings, maybe making a little bit of a comeback. But now, when I watch what these NXT people are doing, or what Triple H, or to speak to Wall Street, watch what Triple H is doing with NXT, man, to me, this is making a comeback because I want to watch this. You're not insulting my intelligence. You're letting me suspend my disbelief, and I'm willing to. Just
exactly.
You keep bringing it. You keep bringing it in the fashion you're bringing it because, man, I'll sit there and just chuckle the whole time because I'm like, hey, they're shooting with me here. They're buying in, and I'm buying in too. So let's keep doing it together. I love the presentation. If they keep doing this, I think they'll make a comeback.
There's no reference to any inside information. There's no reference to internet fans. There's no reference to I deserve a better push or I hate this gimmick. All of that stuff that TNA has been hung up on for 14 years, that it's held them back. All the stuff that I roll my eyes at, trying to recreate this. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of it, the Survivor Series, Screwjob of Brett, trying to fool the fans. Forget all that stuff. You said the key word, Steve. You're willing to believe. Give fans a story to believe in, and they will embrace it. They'll immerse themselves in it. They will follow it. And NXT is a living, breathing example of it. They do so much right. And you're right. Granted, they have the advantage of not doing 3-4 hour pay-per-views every month. They only do these big shows for 2.5 hours every couple months. They have a 1 hour weekly show. That's built in as structurally to their advantage, but you take that away, there's still things that they do fundamentally that is a lost art. And I just can't praise enough how many little things they do better that a whole 2 generations of fans have never seen done, but they're experiencing it now, and those things add up. They make a difference, and it works.
I do, so let's don't beat a dead horse. Wade, tell the people where they can find you and everything that you do.
I do a live podcast after Raw and after SmackDown. As soon as the show ends, I'm on the air. Call us, listen. Find out more details at pwtorchlivecast.com. I also do pwtorch.com, news, TV results, live paper results, all the written reports, great features. Check us out, pwtorch.com. Also, MMAtorch.com, CM Punk fighting this Saturday, Steve. We got tons of coverage of CM Punk press conference, my analysis of what he's saying, what Mickey Gall is saying. We'll have live coverage of that fight Saturday, but join us every day. Every day we've got something new on CM Punk. We are all in on this. We can cover Punk better than anybody because I've been following him from the beginning. And you can follow me on Twitter at @TheWadeKeller. My coupon code still applies if you want to become a VIP member. Just use the coupon code TAKEOVER16. And if you use that, you get $5 off a VIP membership. Find out details at pwtorch.com/GoVIP. Hit rewind. That's a lot of information, but go check that out. I do podcasts every day and a bunch of websites, so check it out.
Wade, enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for helping a brother out. It was fun breaking down this pay-per-view. I'm glad you recommended it to me because it was damn sure worth watching. And, hey, I might have been 2 weeks behind on it, but it was really worth watching and talking about because this is an important movement. This is an important step or a continuation of steps in the right direction. And, again, with the announcers doing what they're doing, with the guys and gals doing what they're doing within the framework of the NXT umbrella, I love it, and I'm a fan. I always want to be a fan. I don't want to come across as a grizzled veteran when I'm voicing my opinion. When I get a chance to talk about these people doing what they do, what I got a chance to do for 13, 14 years, it's just a highlight of my day. So swig a beer to everybody down there at NXT under that WWE umbrella. Wade, I appreciate it.
Steve, I was excited when you said you wanted to talk about this show. I think things move too quickly in this world, and 2 weeks should not be too long of a time to go back and look at a show this good. So I think it was relevant and a good discussion.
Absolutely. I'll catch you down the road.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, everybody, give me the go home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in sunset. Before I do, I want to thank Wade Keller, Pro Wrestling Torch, for helping me break down this pay-per-view. What I've got for you to watch is on the WWE Network. It's TakeOver NXT in Brooklyn. This was one hell of a card. If you haven't seen it, if you want to watch pro wrestling, they can call it sports entertainment, but this is pro wrestling. Watch this show. I thought this highly of this event and highly recommend it. I thought all the talent from top to bottom got off. Surprise performances from a lot of people that I'd never heard of and had been paying a lot of dues and learning the craft. So this is a great event. Much respect to NXT for the production values, for making it look and feel like pro wrestling, and for all the guys and gals on the card. Y'all knocked it out of the park. And shout out to the crowd there in Brooklyn. Y'all rocked the house and blew the roof off a couple of times. I dug it the most. Hey, before I get into a couple of reminders, I want to thank Ryan over at Pro Wrestling Tees for getting all my shirts ready for Broken Skull Challenge. They did a lot of work, did a lot of good work. So thanks again, Ryan, to all you guys at Pro Wrestling Tees. All these T-shirt designs are going to be available at BrokenSkullRanch.com. They're going to be on a new episode of Broken Skull Challenge, which I'm filming right now. I'm going to make them available real soon. Broken Skull IPA continues to be the number one IPA in the USA from El Segundo Brewing Company. In Cali, it's at Whole Foods and Total Wine. If you want to order it to be delivered to your house, go to BrokenSkullRanch.com and there's a link. Also, the Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife, Steve Austin, is at BrokenSkullRanch.com. And I appreciate the word-of-mouth advertising you guys are doing on behalf of this podcast. I don't have an advertising budget. I appreciate y'all supporting the sponsors of the Steve Austin podcast because they're the ones that let me do this for you free twice a week. Once again, big thanks to ddpyoga.com/Austin. Get 20% off the DDP Yoga DVDs and 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app for a limited time. Big thanks to DraftKings. Use my promo code Steve to play for free with your first deposit. To the Dollar Shave Club. Join the dollarshaveclub.com/Steve now. All new members who buy a tube of Dr. Carver shave butter will get a month of the executive razor for free. And, of course, a big thank you to Amazon, who have been supporting this podcast since day one. If you use my Amazon links whenever you do any online shopping, Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast. It does not cost you anything extra. There are no hidden fees or charges. And you can find my Amazon links by going to podcast1.com, clicking the Killer Deals button on the top right corner of the page, and then hitting the Steve Austin Show button. I got Amazon links for Amazon USA, Amazon UK, and Amazon Canada. Bookmark it so you find it in one click. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at podcast1.com. That's podcastone.com.
I want to say thank you to Drop Stop, one of the great sponsors of this show. Drop Stop is the original patented seat gap filler, as seen on TV's Shark Tank. Get the original Drop Stop at buydropstop.com and use code STEVE for 2 free gifts and free shipping. Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One right after this.
When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
Update. I'm Carlotta Bradley. Southeastern governors are dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. Florida Governor Rick Scott.
The brunt of our problem is really right now in Northeast Florida. I'm going to be here until people get back. I want them back to work. I want the businesses open. I want people back to school. I want people in their homes, and I want them to have power.
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley says power needs to be restored and roads fixed so evacuees can get back home.
We are dealing with flooding. We are dealing with trees down. We are going to deal with debris removal. And so we ask for your patience.
North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory says 3 people have died in the state, so residents need to understand just how bad conditions are.
From Raleigh all the way east, stay off the roads, stay in your house, watch the football games on TV, bunker up.
3 people have died in Georgia, 4 in Florida. AP Update. I'm Carlotta Bradley.